Hello bitches, welcome back to my channel. Before I get started, first of all, thank you all so much for 200k. Like, I actually hit 200k a few weeks ago, but I didn't want to say anything because you know when you're just in that fluctuation of losing and gaining followers or subscribers, it's just like, I just want to make sure we stay at 200k before I say something, and then it's like, oh, we're back at 199k. So yeah, thank you all so much. It's been quite a wild ride. I never thought I would be doing YouTube as a side thing, but here we are. But yeah, for today's Draw With Me, if you're wondering what I'm doing, it's actually going to be a different type of Draw With Me. I'm going to be working on my comics for Instagram just to kill two birds with one stone, and as of lately, I've been doing them traditionally with paper, colored pencil, and my very well-used Muji pen. So yeah, this is just going to kind of be a different type of Draw With Me just because I'm doing this because I'm busy and I need to get things done. Anyway, before I get started, here are my thumbnails for this comic. I know it's sloppy and messy, but this is just my way of getting the thoughts out as fast as possible. They're kind of like personal notes to myself. Nobody else might understand them, but I can, and the point is to just be a little bit more efficient about my workflow and not worry too much about how it looks like to others, which brings me to the topic of today's video. Insecurities with your art and how to stop being insecure, or how to be better about not being insecure, because I feel like insecurity is just gonna be something that is always gonna be a part of us. It's not gonna go away. You might just have a better way of coping with it in the future. So to some that might be relieving to know, and to others, like, sorry to break it to you, but insecurity is a natural human feeling that you will feel. So people often ask me how I stop feeling insecure about sharing my work or just kind of putting myself out there, and the truth is that I just never really stop feeling insecure. It's just I get better with coping with it. I don't feel like I am this person who is perfectly confident, nor do I expect myself to ever be, and I think that there's just a lot of relief in just knowing that fact that this is something that is just not going to go away, but you can learn to be better about dealing with it. So ever since I was little, I really tied my worth to art a lot, and I feel like a lot of other young artists do this today as well, and it can be good in some ways because you will really learn to push yourself and learn to be better whenever you are critical about your work. But of course it can also be pretty toxic if you never stop being critical about your work and you never give yourself a break. And you know, I feel like it can be almost like bad body image but for your own work. And for me personally, it got pretty bad to the extent where it's gonna sound ridiculous when someone hears this, but I felt like I did not deserve to hang out with certain people just because my art was not as good as theirs, or I did not belong to be in the presence of someone that, you know, I admired, because I felt like I was so shitty compared to them. And it even prevented me from making genuine connections or friendships with people. For example, my first internship ever was at Cartoon Network, and you know, it was a great experience. Everyone was super kind, friendly, and welcoming to me. However, it's also my first internship ever in an industry that I have longed to be in since I was little, and I was also kind of dealing with the fact of realizing that, you know, there's so many other artists better than I am out there. What am I compared to them? And having that realization kind of paralyzed me from really wanting to meet people because of imposter syndrome. So I remember specifically on one of my first days at my internship at Cartoon Network, I was just sitting on a table that was kind of open to everyone who's passing by. Like, they were just setting up my workstation somewhere, and this was just what they could do for the moment. And one of the background artists just came up to me and introduced themselves to me and just was forming friendly conversation. But for some reason, there was a part of me that was really just trying to get myself out of the conversation, because I just felt like for some reason this person is eventually going to just realize that I'm dumb and I don't have as much knowledge as they do, and I'm not as great as drawing. I'm not on their level. So like, they're just spending this time talking to me only to realize that I'm a piece of shit later. And you know, don't waste your time talking to me. Like, this is literally the demon that sits inside my brain, if I had to be completely honest and filterless about the way my brain worked when I was like 19. And now that I look back as an adult, even though 19 is kind of an adult, but I don't really count 19 as an adult, to be honest, I just can't believe I thought like that. And I would never ever think about that type of thought towards someone else, for some reason, it felt like only I was worthy of these really harsh thoughts regarding my art and how it reflects on my worth. And to some degree, this is a very negative example of narcissism, I guess. It's like you just think everything is about yourself, and it's not the case. But I feel like a lot of young artists will go through this just because you have so much personal ties to what you're creating. You're pouring your emotions in it. These are probably inspired by your life experiences. Of course, it's going to be scary to kind of share your art with others and see how others might perceive you based off of your artwork, your style, your skill level. Like, there's so many things that people can judge you on just based on your artwork. And at the end of the day, it's not only artists who feel this way, everyone feels this way with whatever work that they're doing. I feel like we have some level of a relationship to our work that's going to affect us emotionally in some way. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why I make these videos that are kind of geared more towards mindsets, towards creating, drawing, making art, more so than a tutorial about how to draw stuff. Like, again, at the end of the day, I think tutorials are great, but I just feel like with my current workload, that's something that's not that possible. But I feel like shedding light upon, getting people to just feel motivated and less fearful of laying down a line on a piece of paper is something that is a little bit more up my alley. I've had friends who were severely depressed and drawing was their only outlet, but even when they created art, if they did not like the way it turned out or it doesn't meet their expectations on their skill level, they would just be very upset by it, and it would really affect them mentally and emotionally. And I feel like that's kind of the audience that I want to reach out to with my work, because I feel like people should learn to really love and appreciate what it is that they're making, no matter what skill level it is at, because there's a reason why we just enjoyed drawing when we were a kid and we had no awareness to the other artists that existed out there in the world. You just drew because you loved it. And why can't we just get back to that phase? So I feel like a common insecurity with art is due to skill level. Some people feel like they're at a level that they shouldn't be at when they're at a certain age. Like, oh, by the time you're 30, you should be this good at drawing, but you're not there yet. Or maybe you started later than others. Or in general, there are people who just always feel like they need to be improving just because there's so many other good artists out there. So the fact that their skill level does not match their expectations, it can upset them. So I feel like when it comes to skill level, first of all, the fact is that there's always going to be someone out there subjectively better than you, but it's important to note that it's subjective because art is perceived differently by others. People like things for different reasons, just like how people like different food. I think it's something that you shouldn't take too personally, and people can still be friends and have good, solid relationships with each other, even if their art styles don't match with each other. Like, I don't think people are that black and white, where just because someone draws a certain way, you can't be like friends, or you can't have any sort of coexistence. But at the end of the day, I just think it's important that we all remain conscious that everyone came from a different background and upbringing that led them to where they are today. Whether if you are viewing someone who is better than you in art, or you're viewing someone who is less skilled than you in art, or something like that. So just remember that the person who might be better than you at drawing or whatever, maybe they came from an upbringing that wasn't the greatest, and drawing was their only way of coping. And instead of viewing them as a threat, you can view them as an inspiration. And for those who look down upon those who don't have a good skill level, it's more like, well, weren't you kind of at their level before? You don't know anything about where they came from that caused them to not be able to improve at the rate that you did. I just think it's important to remain more compassionate towards other people when it comes to something like art, it's not a life or death situation, it's just a drawing, so don't judge people just based on their skill level. And I feel like just remembering this can help you be a little bit more confident in your art, because you will know that if someone is just judging you based off of your skill level, well, that person is an asshole. And for the people who feel insecure about sharing their work or presenting their work to a bunch of people, I think it's always just good to remember that nobody cares. Like, it's kind of a blessing in disguise, because you might think it's bad that nobody cares, but I think it's actually great that no one cares, because that's all the more reason for you to just do whatever you want. Like, people will see your work, they'll either like it, love it, not care about it, and less likely to hate it. I feel like people who hate things usually have, another motive behind their reasons to do so, unless if you're actually making something that's actually offensive and actually will draw in hate, then be careful with what you're sharing in that case. But for the most part, I think people who just want to share their work, there's nothing to hate about that. So no one is gonna think too deeply about you or your work to the level that you do. I think it's just good to know that I'm the only one who will ever obsess about my work to the extent that I do, and nobody else will care that much, because that gives me a little bit more liberty to kind of do whatever I want. And when nobody is watching, I feel like people perform the best. So just act as if nobody is there, because if nobody cares, it's like nobody's there. That rhymed. I also just think it's important to remember that everybody has their own life, and in that, people have their own lives. They have other things to worry about other than just scrolling past your artwork. And in that case, you should also not care that much about your art to that extent, because you have also so many other things going on in your life beyond just your art that make you who you are. So don't narrow down your personality or your identity just based off of just doodles, scribbles, paintings, or whatever it is you create. There are so many other things that you do in your life that make you who you are beyond just your art, so don't let that make you insecure about yourself. Anyway, if you're wondering what I'm doing now, what I do with my comics nowadays is I scan them in and I bring them into Procreate, and I just kind of edit them to make it more polished for Instagram. And you might think that this is so much more effort and so much more time, but this is actually so much faster for me compared to just drawing on Photoshop or Procreate or directly into a digital program, because I feel like when I draw analog on a piece of paper, I just am forced to live with my decisions. I can't go back and abuse the undo button and, draw lines over and over again, because that attitude really just takes up a lot of time, and I feel like I really need to revert back to this traditional state to just accept my imperfections, accept the flaws, and just know that the point of my art is to tell a story more so than presenting a finished, polished illustration. So that's kind of what I've been doing with my comics lately on Instagram. And speaking of insecurities, this comic is about how I used to hate my voice because people thought it was so deep, and now I like my voice, and I'm glad to hear that some other people like it too, I guess. Is that weird? Okay. Anyway, I hope this video helped reach out to anyone who is currently not feeling the most secure about their art or skill level, and that maybe this will help them remember that you are not equal to your art or your creations. I just think it's important to sometimes put these boundaries between your identity and things that you just do. So yeah, thank you for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. So peace out and stay wholesome, bitches.